Hi, I'm Liv and welcome to the Book Nook. Today I'm going to do a little bit of a mini haul. Now I know on this channel I seem to be doing things a little bit arse about face at the moment. I realise I haven't actually done any book reviews or wrap-ups or anything, but I'm using these videos as an excuse to kind of get my eye in, get used to doing things. But today, the exciting thing is, I'm actually going to hold up some books in this here space. How exciting. Now I seem to have done this quite nicely actually. I forgot that I was organised last night and put them into piles. These are all the ones that I bought this month. So the first few books I picked up this month are a little bit of translated fiction. Now I have done another video which I'm probably going to refilm because it was like one of the first ones and it was really ropey, where I talk about Record of a Night Too Brief by Hiromi Kawakami, which is part of the Pushkin Press series of Japanese novellas. And I've read Spring Garden as well by Tomoka Shibasaki, I want to say. But anyway, one of the books I picked up was another in the series, which is Slow Boat by Hideo Furukawa, and this one says, trapped in Tokyo, left behind by a series of girlfriends, the narrator of Slow Boat sizes up his situation, his missteps, his violent rebellions, his tiny victories. But he is not a passive loser content to accept all that fate hands him. He attempts one last escape to the edges of the city, holding the only safety net he has known, his dreams. Filled with lyrical longing and humour, Slow Boat captures perfectly the urge to get away and the necessity of finding yourself in a world which might never even be looking for you. Now, it sounds absolutely amazing, and I will be completely honest and say that I got this because I want to read all of these, because so far they've been wonderful. Spring Garden was brilliant. It took me a little while to get into because I kind of started reading it mid-reading slump, so I went back to it and it was absolutely fantastic. Record of a Night Too Brief was absolutely brilliant. 3 short stories, the first one is my favourite and it was absolutely amazing. So this one I'm very, very excited about. And these covers, look at these covers. Aren't they so pretty? Very excited about that one. I don't know where I'm putting them yet. I have not thought this through. Now the other 2 bits of translated fiction I got this month were these 2 here. So we have got Panty and 100 Shadows. Now these are from Tilted Axis Press, which you've probably heard about from lots of other YouTube videos, is a press set up by Deborah Smith, who translated Han Kang's The Vegetarian and Human Acts. So I'm very, very excited about this. Panty by Sangeeta Bandyopadhyay. That's probably bad. Translated by Arunava Sinha. A woman arrives alone in Kolkata, taking refuge in a deserted apartment while she waits to undergo an unspecified surgery. In this disorienting city, everything seems new and strange. The pavement dwellers outside her block, the collective displays of religiosity. That's a fun word, isn't it? Religiosity. The power cuts and alarming act of arson. Her sense of identity already shaken, when she finds a stained pair of leopard print panties in the otherwise empty wardrobe, she begins to fantasize about their former owner, whose imagined life comes to blur with and overlap her own. Pairing manic energy with dark eroticism, Sangeeta Bandyopadhyay's writing has a surreal, feverish quality, slipping between fluid subjects with great stylistic daring. Credited with being the woman who reintroduced hardcore sexuality into Bengali literature, that's pretty cool, she is neither superficial nor sensationalistic, equally concerned with debates on religion and nationhood as with gender and sexuality. So this one sounds really, really interesting, and it's not a particularly long one, so this one I will be getting around to very soon.
I'm listening.
Ooh. Apparently I just woke up Siri there. So the second of the Tilted Axis Press books is 100 Shadows, written by Hwang Jungeun and translated by Jung Yewon. In a slum electronics market in central Seoul, a city better known for its shiny skyscrapers and slick pop videos, an awkward tentative relationship grows between repair shop assistants Jungeun and Muje. Having both dropped out of formal education, their circumstances are already uncertain when the market is earmarked for demolition, an event seemingly linked to a strange recent development. The shadows of the slum's inhabitants have started to rise. An oblique, hard-edged novel tinged with offbeat fantasy, All Our Shadows leaves the reader to make up their own mind as to the nature of this shape-shifting tale. Hwang's spare prose is illuminated by arresting images, quirky dialogue, and moments of great lyricism, crafting a deeply affecting novel of perfectly calibrated emotional restraint, as well as keen social criticism. I love these blurbs. They're brilliant blurbs. They're like, ooh, give me shivers. Give me shivers. So the next one I picked up when I went into work on my day off, because that's the kind of thing I do, apparently. I saw that we had the paperback version of Neil Gaiman's selected non-fiction, The View from the Cheap Seats. It will draw you into exchanges on making good art and Syrian refugees, the power of a single word, and playing the kazoo with Stephen King. That sounds fun. writing about books, comics and the imagination of friends, being sad at the Oscars and telling lies for a living. Here, Neil Gaiman opens our minds to the people he admires and the things he believes might just mean something, and welcomes us to the conversation too. Now, I've not actually read much Neil Gaiman, which I know is a bone of contention with a lot of people that I work with. I read American Gods quite a while ago, and I did enjoy it. I think it was a bit slower to get going. I don't know whether maybe it wasn't the right one to read as my first Neil Gaiman, but it was a bit slow, but I'm very excited about the TV series. Is that like heresy? Maybe I did start with the wrong one. If you guys have any recommendations as to the best one to sort of just try and fall in love with Neil Gaiman, then that would be wonderful. It's a bit of a chunkster, and obviously it's selected non-fiction, so they're little essays and things, so it's one that I'll probably dip in and dip out of. A dippy. So another one that I bought this month, Tom Bullough's Addlands. Set deep in the hills of the Welsh borders is Funnen Farm, home to the reclusive Hamer family. There is Idris, proud and insular, a man of the plough and the prayer sheet, haunted by the First World War. Then there is the boy Oliver, who grows to be a near mythic giant in the community, a fighter, a drinker, inescapably rooted in the hard remote valley, the centre of this close constellation, who navigates old ways and new technologies as she struggles to ensure her family's survival. Addlands is as vast and complex as a symphony, but as pure and moving as a solo voice in an empty church. Ooh, another good blurb. So this one I heard a lot about when it came out in hardback. I mean, look at that cover. I like that they've kept the sort of font and the styling of the hardback, but then there's a picture of a lovely Welsh countryside. I tend to shy away from books sort of more about nature, and I feel like that's a mistake because I know that there can be the few books that I have read that are more sort of focused on the countryside and in nature. The imagery is fantastic, so I'm a fool for shying away, so this is me shying in. The next one I bought this month is one that I was very, very excited when I heard this was being done. Now, I've not actually read any of his before. I'm going to show you what the book is first, that would be helpful. Howard Jacobson's Pussy. There's a thing I never thought I'd say. As I say, I've never actually read any Howard Jacobson before, and I've always meant to, but when I heard that he was doing this one in the wake of the US presidential election, I thought, I might have to check this one out. So, I'm going to read you the blurb and let's see if anything rings a bell. Pussy is the story of Prince Furukawa, heir presumptive to the Duchy of Oregon, famed for its golden-gated skyscrapers and casinos, who passes his boyhood watching reality TV shows on TV, imagining himself to be the Roman Emperor Nero, and fantasizing about hookers. He is pugnacious, boastful, thin-skinned and egotistic, has no manners, no curiosity, no knowledge, no ideas, and no words in which to express them. Could he, in that case, be the very leader to make the country great again? It's obviously a bit of a satire, a bit of a spoof of what's going on in America at the moment. I'm just quite intrigued to see what he does with it. Baby Trump on the front of a book. Don't know if you can see that. Baby Trump, looking all, well, Trumpy. The last one that I bought this month was Maggie O'Farrell's This Must Be the Place. Now, I've never read any Maggie O'Farrell. I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I'm about halfway through, as you can see. So this one says, a reclusive former film star living in the wilds of Ireland, Claudette Wells thinks nothing of firing a gun if strangers get too close to her house. Why is she so fiercely protective of her privacy, and what made her disappear at the height of her cinematic fame? Her husband Daniel, reeling from a discovery about a woman he last saw 20 years ago, is about to make an exit of his own. It is a journey that will send him off course, far from home. Will his love for Claudette be enough to bring him back? This Must Be the Place crosses continents and time zones, creating a portrait of an extraordinary marriage, the forces that hold it together, and the pressures that drive it apart. So far, this one's really good, and I'm really pleasantly surprised. I don't know what I thought Maggie O'Farrell's writing would be like, and I don't know why I'd sort of never delved into it before, but this one is really, really good so far, and it's a bit of a chunkster, but not a sort of oppressively big chunkster, and it flies by. And it's just, it's lovely so far. This Claudette is an amazing character so far. I don't know how things are going to turn out, but so far she's just, I'm cheering for her and rooting for her, and she's this complex woman who's wonderful, and yeah. If you haven't read any Maggie O'Farrell, why not join me on starting here? In This Must Be the Place. You see what I almost did there and would have actually done a lot smoother if I thought about it or actually knew that joke was coming out of my mouth? My eyes don't open very wide, do they? Tiny eyes. Next up, I am going to talk about the ones that have been sent to me this month. But the first ones I'm going to talk about are the ones that I requested. So I saw that Chatto and Windus were offering copies of Queer City by Peter Ackroyd, and I wanted a copy. So I emailed them very nicely and asked them if they wouldn't mind sending me a copy, and they did. In Queer City, Peter Ackroyd looks at London in a whole new way, through the story of its gay population. In Roman Londinium, the city was dotted with lupanaria, wolf dens or public pleasure houses, furnaces, brothels, and thermae, hot baths. Then came the Emperor Constantine, with his bishops, monks, and missionaries, and so began an endless loop of permissiveness and censure. Ackroyd takes us right into the hidden history of the city, from the notorious Normans to the frenzy of executions for sodomy in the early 19th century. He journeys through the coffee bars of 60s Soho to gay liberation, disco music, and the horror of AIDS. Today we live in an era of increasing openness and tolerance, and queer London has become part of the new norm. Ackroyd tells the story of how it got there, celebrating its diversity, thrills and energy on the one hand, but reminding us of its very real terrors, dangers and risks on the other. So when I requested Queer City, I also asked the lovely David at Penguin Random House if he would kindly be able to possibly please send me 2 books that I have seen doing the rounds on Twitter and Bookstagram, Instagram and Booktube and what have you that I have been coveting for a while. And that is the reissues, vintage reissues of 2 of Maggie Nelson's books, The Red Parts and Bluets. Now I read The Argonauts a little while ago and I was absolutely blown away. So I'm sure you will have heard people talking about The Argonauts, but if you haven't, it's a book about Maggie Nelson who was pregnant and her partner who was transgender but transitioning, and it's a book essentially about the transformation of the 2 bodies, the differences, the similarities, and she's just incredibly intelligent, talking about sort of queer culture and transgender issues, and it's just, it's too intelligent for me, I expect I didn't get half of it, but the good thing about it was it just makes you think about everything. I think the way Simon over at Savage Reed described it was that she puts all these ideas in your head and just shakes it up and leaves you to think about it, and I think that's a perfect way of summing it up. So Bluets is a really intriguing little book that, after I'd finished reading The Argonauts and I was investigating sort of Maggie Nelson's other works, I'd read about this one and was so intrigued. So when I saw the guys at Vintage were doing a reissue, I was like, oh, I love you, please, thank you. Bluets winds its way through depression, divinity, alcohol and desire, visiting along the way the famous blue figures including Joni Mitchell, Billie Holiday, Leonard Cohen and Andy Warhol, while its narrator sets out to construct a sort of pillow book about her lifelong obsession with the colour blue. She ends up facing down both the painful end of an affair and the grievous injury of a dear friend. The combination produces a raw, cerebral work devoted to the inextricability of pleasure and pain, and to the question of what role, if any, aesthetic beauty can play in times of great heartache or grief. So I think it essentially started out as just little snippets about the colour blue, and the form of it is just these little snippets, some longer than others, and it expanded into, as it says, this sort of musing on a friend who was injured and the breakup of an affair, and it's a slim little thing, but I think there's going to be so much packed into this. It's not going to be a dippy, it's going to be a sit down and consume the whole thing, and the cover is absolutely gorgeous. And the next one is The Red Parts, with a similarly gorgeous cover. Now, The Red Parts is another one that I was really intrigued about after I'd finished reading The Argonauts. So it is a memoir, an account of a trial, and a provocative essay that interrogates America's obsession with violence, particularly against women, and that scrupulously explores the nature of grief, justice, and empathy. Late in 2004, Maggie Nelson was preparing for the publication of her book Jane, a Murder, a narrative in verse about the life and death of her aunt, who had been murdered 35 years before. The case remained unsolved, but Jane was assumed to have been the victim of the infamous serial killer in Michigan in 1969. One November afternoon, Nelson received a call from her mother, who announced that the case had been reopened. A new suspect would be arrested and tried on the basis of a DNA match. Over the months that followed, Nelson found herself attending the trial with her mother and reflecting anew on the dread and fear that hung over her family and childhood. This feeling derived not only from the terrible facts of her aunt's murder, but also from her own complicated journey through daughterhood, sisterhood and girlhood. Deftly subversive, The Red Parts gives voice to an inner life contemplating the raw extremes of violence. So this just sounds absolutely fascinating, to have already sort of written a book about the murder of your aunt and be sort of ready to publish it and maybe move on in some way, for then the trial to be reopened and a whole new chapter of this journey to be opened, just sounds absolutely fascinating. This one is a bit more of a chunkster, but it's going to be one that I think, with Maggie Nelson, I love her stuff, so I'm gonna dive in. I do want to say a huge thank you to David at Penguin Random House for kindly sending me these 3. I'm very grateful. Thank you. I just had to go and rescue a little mouse. Actually, it wasn't that little a mouse. He was a big bastard. Killer. Ineffectual killer, as it was still alive. And then the next one I've got a hold of is one that I'm sure you will have all seen on BookTube doing the round, and that is See What I Have Done by Sarah Schmidt. Probably don't need to say much about this one because you will have all seen Lots and lots about it, I am sure. Sarah Schmidt is a librarian from Melbourne. She became obsessed with the Borden story after coming across Lizzie's case by chance in a second-hand bookstore, and her passionate research has even taken her to stay for several nights in the Borden house. Ooh, spooky. Just after 11 a.m. on the 4th of August 1892, the bodies of Andrew and Abby Borden are discovered. He's found on the sitting room sofa, she upstairs on the bedroom floor, both murdered with an axe. It is younger daughter Lizzie who is first on the scene, so it's Lizzie who police question first. But there are others in the household with stories to tell. Older sister Emma, Irish maid Bridget, the girl's uncle John, and a boy who saw more than anyone realises. In a dazzlingly original and chilling reimagining of this most notorious of unsolved mysteries, Sarah Schmidt opens the door to the Borden home and leads us into its murkiest corners, to reveal a place seething with jealousies, slow-brewed rivalries, and the darkest of thoughts. This one, as I say, I've heard so much about, and I'm sure you have too. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. Really excited to read this one, and I'm sure that it will be everywhere when it comes out. Everything I've heard about it says it's going to be fantastic. So this one I'm definitely going to bump up the TBR that I don't really have. And the last two were sent to me by the lovely Francine over at Scepter Books. Thank you very much. The first one she asked if I would like, and I said, oh yes please, is Evening Primrose by Kapano Matlwa. And it says on the back, maybe this was all my own doing. I should never have started that petition. I should never have stopped my medication. I should never have daydreamed about Francois who couldn't pronounce my name properly. And I shouldn't have written all this blasphemous crap in this journal. Sounds properly lovely. Don't actually know all that much about it, if I'm honest, but the little I do know intrigues me very much. And again, Scepter do a lovely cover. It's a very nice cover. And the second one from Scepter I know even less about, to be quite honest with you, but it looks absolutely wonderful. And for a proof cover, I am in love with this. This is absolutely gorgeous. It's called Before Everything, and it says on the inside, end of 6th grade, they made it their official name. It was a joke one afternoon, but they liked the way it sounded. Permanent. The old friends. This way, the 5 girls agree, it's just a fact, and it's ours forever. Anna, Molly, Ming, Caroline, Helen, the old friends. They've known each other since the very beginning, before fame and addiction, careers and children, marriage and divorce, before everything. Now one of them is facing the end of her life, and the old friends must gather one more time. I've sort of had a flick through and tried, I always do that when I get a proof, I have a flick through and try to read pages but without finding out what's going on, just to get a feel for it, and it's always a risky game. So, that's my first book haul done on YouTube. Ooh, that's fun. And I bet you can't wait for me to get a haircut and stop faffing about with my hair during the videos. I'm very sorry. The cat's here. Hello, cat. Do you have to use the scratching post when I'm filming? We'll just wait for him to finish. You done? Thanks very much for watching and joining me in the Book Nook. I will be back with probably another little mini haul, but before then I am going to do a little video for Cozy Reading Night, because I'm so excited to join in. So it's Lauren over at Lauren the Books runs these, and it's a wonderful idea. We're basically Cozy Reading Night between 7 and 10 on Sunday the 23rd of April. You sit down with blankets, snacks, what have you, and read. And you join in on Instagram and Twitter and everything else. I think I've mainly picked what I'm going to read on Cozy Reading Night. So, again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!